On March 8, 2014, a Boeing 777, one of the safest airplanes in the world, took off from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. It was Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, or MH370, on a routine overnight journey to Beijing, China. On board were 239 souls, 227 passengers and 12 crew members, but this flight was anything but routine. It vanished from the sky without a single distress call, without a trace, leaving behind a mystery that continues to haunt the world more than a decade later. How could a massive, modern airliner simply disappear? Today, we delve into the baffling story of MH370, exploring what we know, what we don't, and why this tragedy remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of our time. Let's start with the people on board. The 227 passengers came from 14 different nations. The majority were from China, many returning home after a holiday. There were artists, engineers, families with young children, and business travelers. The 12 crew members were all Malaysian, led by Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, a highly respected pilot with over 18,000 hours of flight experience. His first officer, Farik Abdul Hamid, was also well-trained and on his way to becoming a fully certified 777 captain. The aircraft itself, registered as 9MMRO, had a clean maintenance record. Everything about the flight suggested it would be completely normal, just another night in the sky. The flight departed Kuala Lumpur at 12:41 a.m. local time. For the first 40 minutes, everything went according to plan. The plane climbed to its cruising altitude of 35,000 feet and followed its designated flight path over the South China Sea. At 1:19 a.m., as MH370 was about to leave Malaysian airspace and enter Vietnamese airspace, the air traffic controller in Kuala Lumpur radioed the cockpit. The instruction was simple: contact Ho Chi Minh City Control. Captain Zahari's calm voice replied with the last words ever heard from the flight: "Good night, Malaysian 370. Those 5 words have become chillingly famous, marking the final moment of normalcy before the aircraft vanished into the unknown. Just a minute or two after that last transmission, something critical happened. The plane's transponder, a device that broadcasts its identity and position to civilian radar, was switched off. Instantly, MH370 disappeared from the screens of air traffic controllers. From their perspective, the plane had simply ceased to exist. For the next several hours, a terrifying silence descended. No one knew where the plane was. As the sun rose over Beijing and the plane failed to arrive, panic began to set in, but the plane hadn't just vanished. Military radar, which operates differently from civilian radar, had tracked an unidentified aircraft after the transponder went silent. The data pieced together later was shocking. Instead of flying northeast to Beijing, MH370 had made a sharp, deliberate turn back to the west, flying across the Malay Peninsula. It then veered northwest, flying over the Andaman Sea, far off its intended course. This wasn't a mechanical failure that sent the plane spiraling down. This was a controlled, navigated flight. Someone was still flying the plane, but who and why? And most disturbingly, why was there no communication? No distress call, no emergency signal, just silence. The trail went cold after the plane flew out of military radar range. For a while, it seemed that was the end of the story. But then investigators made a groundbreaking discovery. They found that even after disappearing from all radar, the plane's satellite data unit had continued to automatically send signals, or pings, to a satellite owned by the British company Inmarsat. These hourly pings were like a series of faint electronic handshakes, confirming that the plane was still powered up and flying. These signals continued for nearly 6 more hours after it disappeared from military radar. The pings didn't give a precise location, but they did provide crucial clues. By analyzing the time it took for the pings to travel between the plane and the satellite, experts could calculate the aircraft's distance from the satellite at each ping. This created two vast arcs of possible locations. One arc stretched north, over Central Asia, crossing several countries with sensitive airspace. The other arc stretched south into the vast, empty expanse of the southern Indian Ocean. After analyzing the plane's likely fuel levels and other data, investigators concluded that the southern route was the most probable. The plane had likely flown for hours on a ghost flight until it ran out of fuel and crashed into one of the most remote and treacherous parts of the world's oceans. This conclusion launched the largest and most expensive search operation in aviation history. An international coalition of countries, led by Australia, Malaysia, and China, scoured millions of square kilometers of the Indian Ocean. Sophisticated ships with deep-sea sonar equipment mapped the ocean floor, while aircraft scanned the surface for any sign of wreckage. The search area was immense, the conditions were brutal, and the water was miles deep. For more than a year, the search yielded nothing but frustration and disappointment. The ocean, it seemed, was determined to keep its secrets. Then in July 2015, there was a breakthrough. A piece of an aircraft wing, known as a flaperon, washed ashore on Reunion Island, thousands of kilometers west of the search area. In 2018, after years of investigation, the Malaysian government released its final report. The nearly 500-page document was a painful admission of failure. It concluded that the plane's course was changed manually, under deliberate control. But it could not determine who was controlling the plane or why. It ruled out a simple mechanical failure, but stated that unlawful interference by a third party, like a hijacking, could not be ruled out either. Ultimately, the report's conclusion was devastatingly simple. The team is unable to determine the real cause for the disappearance of MH370. The truth remained as elusive as ever. In the vacuum of hard evidence, theories have flourished, ranging from the plausible to the outlandish. One of the most prominent theories focuses on pilot involvement, suggesting that Captain Zahari deliberately crashed the plane. Supporters of this theory point to a flight simulator found in his home, which contained a plotted course similar to the one MH370 is believed to have taken. However, investigators found no evidence of any motive. His family and friends describe him as a kind, professional man, and the final report found no signs of psychological distress or malicious intent. Another major theory is a hijacking. Perhaps someone took control of the plane and flew it to its doom. But no group has ever claimed responsibility, and the passenger list was thoroughly vetted with no credible suspects identified. A third theory suggests a catastrophic event on board, like a fire or a sudden decompression, that incapacitated the crew and passengers, leaving the plane to fly on autopilot until it ran out of fuel, a so-called ghost flight. This could explain the lack of communication, but it struggles to explain the deliberate, controlled turns the plane made early on. Each theory has its believers, but each one also has significant flaws and a lack of conclusive evidence. For the families of the 239 people on board, the last decade has been an exercise in unimaginable pain. They have been trapped in a state of limbo, grieving for loved ones without the closure of knowing what happened. They have fought tirelessly for answers, demanding that search efforts continue. Their loss is not just a personal tragedy, it's a wound that remains open for the world. The disappearance of MH370 also sent shockwaves through the aviation industry, forcing a hard look at safety and tracking protocols. In a world where we can track a pizza delivery to our front door in real time, the idea that a 300-ton airliner could vanish was unthinkable. As a direct result of the tragedy, new regulations were implemented. Airlines are now required to have systems that track aircraft more frequently. The battery life of flight recorders was extended, and new standards were developed to make them easier to locate after a crash. MH370, in its tragic mystery, has made flying safer for everyone. More than a decade has passed, and the mystery of MH370 endures. It is a story that captivates and terrifies us because it challenges our sense of security and our faith in technology. It reminds us that despite all our advancements, there are still parts of our world that are vast, unknown, and capable of swallowing our greatest creations whole. The plane is still out there, somewhere in the depths of the Indian Ocean, holding the answers to this heartbreaking puzzle. Until it is found, the story of MH370 will continue to be told, a modern legend, a cautionary tale, and a haunting reminder of the 239 souls who vanished into the night. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world.